One of the things that you talk about when you're talking about the rise of social media and the gap between the sort of fiction that's been created on social media for kids and what kids are actually likely to experience, that also manifests as a hatred for the meritocracy. Because the truth is that in any sort of meritocracy, the people who ride to the top are not the people who are faking it at some sort of fuselage in Santa Monica. I mean, the way that you rose to the top, or the way that somebody like me, like, that is tens of thousands of hours of hard work and things that people never see. Right? They see the success at the very end of the story, but they never see the fact that, for me personally, that involved me driving to, meetings in the middle of Temecula, selling books out of the back of my car at the very beginning of my career with my wife. And if we got 10 books sold at $20 a pop, that was like an amazing, amazing day, right? I mean, that's, nobody ever sees that part of it. And the truth is that journey is the fulfilling journey, that if you go immediately to the top, that's actually not particularly fulfilling. It's all the work that you put in to get to the top of the meritocracy that's actually quite fulfilling. And the meritocracy also happens to be the only system ever devised by man that has positive externalities, that actually helps other people. Because when meritorious people, when you're talking about the smartest people or the strongest people or the wisest people, when those people end up at the top of the heap, that has good effects on everybody else. Because any other system, whether it's based on race, whether it's based on class, is going to have negative effects. It's stealing from people who are more meritorious and who have good effects on those around them. But when you have young people and what they see is people who are instantaneously at the top of the heap, and then they say, well, there's no way that I can get there. There's no way that I'm going to be on a jet to Aspen next year or on the way to Cancun. Instead, what they start to do is they rebel against the entire system as they perceive it, even though the system itself, as they perceive it, is false. It's not real. Get to more on this in a moment. First, there's been some monumental news recently nobody is talking about. For the first time in American history, the interest we pay on the national debt surpassed every individual budget item except for Social Security. This means the U.S. now spends more on interest than on our national defense or even Medicare, which is disgraceful and is only getting worse as our government continues to spend like drunken sailors. That is why savvy investors, central banks, and concerned savers are turning to gold, because it's not tied to the inflated U.S. dollar. You can too, with the help of Birch Gold. For over 20 years, Birch Gold Group has helped thousands of Americans protect their savings by converting an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. To learn more, text BEN to 989898. Claim your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Birch Gold has earned my trust with their education-first approach. You can give them a call, ask them all your questions. Once those are answered, think about diversifying. They will earn your trust as well. They've earned the trust of thousands of other happy customers. Protect your savings today. Text BEN to 989898 to get started. Again, text BEN to 989898 and start diversifying today. Text BEN to 989898.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is, from a psychological standpoint, one of the things that bothers me is when we see we see what you just described happening, and we see parents who are smoothing out the bumps in the road for their kids. And I think we've got way too many concierge parents who are filling out the college applications for the child. They're racing up there and trying to resolve conflicts if the child has them, and we're seeing all of this kind of petitioning for equality of outcome. I'm okay. We can talk about equality of opportunity. We don't have that either. I mean, we can talk about that in a minute. But this equality of outcome that is being taught and espoused in the schools, what happens is we have these kids being cheated out of the opportunity to observe themselves overcoming these obstacles. When a kid goes out there and does a good job and overcomes a hurdle, overcomes an obstacle, they're able to say, hey, I did that. I overcame that. And I saw myself do that. So they attribute to themselves the ability to handle that, the ability to do that. You observed yourself selling books out of the back of your car. And Robin and I have been married 47 years. And when we got married, if it wasn't for 2-for-1 burger bucks, one of us would have starved. So you go through that, and you don't realize you have a bad deal at the time. It's not like it was trauma. I'm not whining about it now. We were fine. We had a good time. But you observe yourself going through that and say, I've never been afraid of being poor because I can do poor. I've seen me do poor. I know I can do it. Long as I've got a good pair of tennis shoes and a ball that bounces, I'm okay. So I don't fear it. But I know that about myself because I've seen me do it. And so many kids are cheated out of that because you've got all of these people out there saying, hey, we should have equality of outcome. So I read that to be, all right, if you're home in a beanbag eating Cheetos and then somebody else is working 12, 14 hours a day, at the end of the month, you should be in the same place. You should have the same outcome. That's insanity. But that's what's being taught in our schools. That's what's, and I'm not saying that just in a anecdotal sort of way. The number of university professors that are left-leaning liberal, everybody should come out the same, versus those that are really honor a meritocracy and hard work, the ratio is so out of balance. I'm really concerned. That's what I mean when I say we got issues.
Yeah, and the social engineers obviously have taken control of the train, and it's a really major problem. When you mentioned parenting here, I want to get your thoughts on parenting. What are the best ways to parent? Because obviously I have 4 kids. They range in age from 10 years old to 10 months old. And one of the hardest things as a parent of young kids is to let them fail. It's really, really, really difficult. But the truth is that unless you let them fail, they never learn to succeed, because they actually achieve a sort of learned helplessness in which they're waiting for me to come in and solve their problems. And it's very difficult as a parent to watch your kids struggle and cry over a math problem and have a really difficult time. But the minute you step in and solve the problem for them, what they take away from that is that they are incapable of solving the problem at any point in the future. You have to actually let them sit there and struggle and cry. And it's really rough as a parent, but it may be the most important thing that you can do as a parent, it seems to me.
It's one of the greatest gifts you can give them, is allowing them to master a certain skill set, a certain challenge. And look, I don't, everything is a balance, right? I think if a child is getting relentlessly bullied, if they're being targeted in some way, a little bit of that is not necessarily bad either. A child needs to understand, hey, I can be picked on and I came back from it, I'm okay. They could have a teacher that's unfair, and you can look at it and say, yeah, they really are unfair. But you just have to buck up and get through it. That's okay. But if you have a child that is really being isolated and targeted, you need to let them know, hey, you're not alone. I got your back and I'm here with you. So, it's everything in balance. It's the parents that rush in and don't let the child scrape their knee. Don't let the child fail the test because they didn't do the work, they didn't prepare. It's the parent that says we got to have trophies and a pizza party at the end of an 0-14 basketball season. And I coached some of those, so I know. Because I would coach at the Y, and you'd have the 12 to 14 age bracket or the 8 to 10, and when you come in at the 8 level, you're playing those that are 2 years older. You're going to get beat every game for a while, and they need to learn, hey, that's okay. Next year we'll win half the games, and the next year we'll win them all because we'll be the older kids. They learn that you've got to develop the skills. You've got to let them take those lumps, and what you have to tell yourself is, hey, this is me letting them get a thick skin. This is me letting them observe themselves fail and get back up. And they can't observe themselves getting up if they never fall down. And so you so cheat them out of it. And I think parents are so cheating their child. And let me tell you something. They're not doing that for the child. They're doing that to make themselves feel better. That's just like the mother that enables the kid on drugs. And she says, oh, well, I do give him money, or I do let him stay at the house when he's doing drugs because I love him so much. No, you're doing that so you don't feel anxious about where he is that night. You're giving him money to put poison in his veins so you sleep better. Not because you're concerned about him. You're doing it so you feel better about who you are. That's what enabling is all about. And we got a lot of parents enabling their children to make themselves feel better. They're not doing it for the child. They're doing it for themselves. They just don't recognize that. And they hate it when I tell them that, but it's the truth.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.